If you're a lineman in charge of keeping the lights on, Grainger understands that you go to great lengths and sometimes heights to ensure the power is always flowing, which is why you can count on Grainger for professional-grade products and next-day delivery, so you have everything you need to get the job done. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Any signs of life?
Negative.
Have you tried all hailing frequencies?
Affirmative. No answer from the cube.
Have the department heads meet me on the bridge.
Already standing by.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind. Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore. We will be united in our common interest. Perhaps it's fate that today is the 4th of July, and you will once again be fighting for our freedom. Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. And should we win the day, the 4th of July will no longer be known as an American holiday, but as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome out to thisweekingeek.net's Future Imperfect. I am one of your travelers among the stars. I am Mike the Birdman Ashkui, and this is the Twig Show that's dedicated to sci-fi, all its properties, some good, some bad, some why did you bother? But I'm not alone as I move through this American holiday that somehow got named into a movie. I'm joined by my compatriot, my best friend, my brother from the city of Kitchener, Ontario, Canada.
Alex, the producer.
And of course, it would not be Future Imperfect without the smartest guy that I know, the person who I consider to be pretty much my Trek master, my good friend from the city of Lansing, Michigan.
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
So guys, welcome back to the first Future Imperfect of 2025. Man, feels weird to say that, but I'm glad to be back here on the show. And, well, we're going to start things off this year with a bit of a blockbuster that I remember watching as a kid a number of times in theaters. I think I saw this in theaters like 5 or 6 times. And if you were a child in the 90s, you could guarantee every supply teacher would put this movie on if there was nothing else to do. I'm pretty sure every house in the 90s came with copies of Jurassic Park, Men in Black, Titanic, the double box set, and the movie we're going to be talking about today, which is Roland Emmerich's Independence Day. We're also going to be talking about the sequel as well. But I guess I'll go around the table here first and kind of figure out where everybody first saw the first movie. And then we'll come back to me and I'll kind of give you my weird long history with this particular franchise. So I'm actually going to start with Aaron first. So Aaron, in the 90s, so about 1996, I want to say is when Independence Day first came out. Yeah. When did you first see this?
I saw it on an opening night in a packed theater. I saw it with my buddy, one of my high school roommates, and I was like almost 19. I was still 18. My birthday hadn't hit yet, but the energy in the theater was insane. It was kind of like the same experience I had seeing Starship Troopers on opening night, where like the audience energy was just as important as the movie in that case. Now, I ended up seeing the movie like 2 more times in the theaters. And this is kind of a movie that was right up my alley, even when I was 18. So, I mean, I liked it. I bought the soundtrack. And through the years, I've probably thought about it more than most people have, or at least for various reasons. And I've become more critical of it over time, but I still love it. I think it's one of the best blockbusters of the 1990s, right up there with like Terminator 2.
100%. Yeah. I mean, there's something when you mention about the energy in the theater that only has been recaptured with the MCU, but definitely not so much now. But yeah, very much I was the same way. And I definitely want to touch upon that for sure. Alex, what about you, buddy? Because you're younger than me and Aaron. So how old were you when this came out?
I was 9.
Okay, so you were at a pretty good age to see this then.
I didn't see it in theaters because there was we didn't see a lot, like we weren't like loaded, so we weren't going to theaters that often. It was maybe like I saw maybe like 2 movies a year back then. And if it wasn't around my birthday in February, I probably wasn't going to see it in theaters, but we would rent movies. So I remember renting it when it came out. And I thought it was pretty good. It was entertaining and exciting. And then I started to hate the movie because we were shown it, I'm not even exaggerating, probably 50 times over the next 7 or 8 years in school.
Oh, wow.
Literally every single time we had a supply teacher from 1997 until like 2004 or 5, that was the movie that was popped in. It didn't matter what class. And I was like, I got so sick of it. I was like, can we watch anything else? And like you were saying, Mike, for whatever reason, every school, like grade school, middle school, high school, they all had copies on VHS. I don't know why. It might have been something, at least in Ontario, where like they had an approved videos list or something, where because it was like rated PG here. I don't even think it was PG-13 in like Ontario. I think like it was on the list. Like it was, your choices were that or I'm trying to think, there were usually a couple other movies that they had, but it seemed like every other like class, whenever there was a supply teacher, would scramble to get one of the other pictures. But it got to the point where I was like, I'm so sick of this movie. And like all the like important and funny moments in it, eventually they lose their luster. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to see it again. But that being said, for the time, it sort of, I think, is it is the film you would pick to represent the 1990s action movie.
Yeah, and I don't think that's fair.
Like you might think, oh, the best action movie of the 90s, a lot of people will say is like True Lies, or they might say Terminator 2.
Yeah,
but in reality, I think like the one that represents the entire decade, as far as like the aesthetic, the writing, the vibes, quote unquote, it's probably Independence Day.
Yeah, I would say Independence Day. I think you can make a pretty good case for Armageddon, maybe Men in Black, but definitely in terms of accessible sci-fi, I think.
I consider Men in Black comedy.
Yeah,
I can see that. So my history with this begins much like Aaron. I think I saw this pretty close to opening day. I want to say I saw this at a drive-in theater, which was again something kind of cool. I think I went with my best friend at the time. I can't remember if I took a girlfriend to see this or not, but this movie was my jam for like that entire summer. Much like Aaron, I bought the soundtrack, and I bought it because I didn't really know what soundtracks were. And what I mean by that is, I thought I was going to get the song It's the End of the World as We Know It by REM, which actually came from their album Document, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, so you didn't know the difference between what a score and a soundtrack was.
Yeah, exactly. I had no clue. So, mind you, this is what made me get interested in film scores at the time, because the only other score I'd bought in previous to this was Jurassic Park. And I was like, wow, this is something I'd never really experienced before. And I remember because Brent Spiner was in it, and, that's Data. That's cool. Seeing Jeff Goldblum. Hey, that's Dr. Ian Malcolm. And, I really liked what I saw. And Will Smith, hey, that's the Fresh Prince. So cool. It had everything that I wanted in a movie at the time. It was big, it was bombastic. And this comes from a different era of blockbuster that, like I mentioned when Aaron was sharing memories, that only Marvel was able to recapture really in the modern memory. But Independence Day was a phenomenon. Like, I remember it being advertised in theaters relentlessly across TV. I remember there was a comic book series. I think Marvel put that out. I'm not 100% sure. There was some merchandise available for this, like, in terms of like toys and stuff like that, but I don't remember much.
It was the iconic shot that they kept using.
Oh,
the
yeah.
one.
Yeah, the one where the White House blows up. Yeah.
And that, even to the point where, like, you want to talk about pop culture, that clip gets reused in like Austin Powers. Like it became synonymous with, like, if there's anything to do with aliens, in a movie or any references, that's the scene that you reference.
Yeah, like it was something unlike we'd ever seen before. And that's when the summer blockbuster, like, yeah, you're right. We'd had True Lies, we'd had Jurassic Park, we'd had Terminator 2. Independence Day somehow rose above that and became something everybody knew.
It was a giant spectacle in like a dozen different ways.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Like, now, the reason I decided to do this show, to bring you guys on board for this, is I'd rewatched it for the first time since probably 2016, maybe 15, before Independence Day 2, which we'll talk about later. And I was like, I'm amazed how well this movie holds up. Now, I am still critical of it in a number of ways because it's obviously rah America. And
it's standard Hollywood, rah, rah, rah. I mean, obviously, it's American movie made for the American audience, and then they just hope the rest of the world likes it. So there is a lot of the whole, only America can save the world situation. Mm-hmm. So, but that's to be expected, because if this was a British movie that was about Britain being invaded, then it would be Britain saving the world. It's that's how it is. So it wasn't too much of that. It was just the right amount of rah rah.
Yeah, and it's something that I noticed about this too is when Bill Pullman delivers his big Independence Day speech. I actually said this to my friend Liam. I can't think of too many really iconic movie moments that came out of the 90s where everybody just knows at least a portion of that speech. And I think it's one of the best written things. While it's, schmaltzy and over the top and ridiculous, it's nevertheless, I think, remains iconic because it gets you pumped, it gets you going, and it's really well written for what it is, despite being in a goofy action sci-fi movie. And I don't know, I think it really stands out as one of those moments in the 90s that really is, this is the 90s encapsulated.
I would say that speech, while it is schmaltzy, it has some actual, like, real feeling speech kind of thing, like the desperation type. We're in war, like just a little section of him talking. We're fighting for our right to live, to exist. We're fighting not against tyranny or oppression or persecution, but our annihilation. It is schmaltzy, but it gets right to the point of what he is trying to say in a way that, like, a political speech should. Giant, like, asterisk by it, ignore modern politics.
Yeah.
But it sticks in your head because it is good. It might be schmaltzy, but it is good.
Now, it's funny you mention modern politics, which we're not going to delve into today, but I really thought about something. There's a couple of throwaway lines in this movie where they talk about how the harvesters, what these creatures eventually became known as, have been studying us since at least the 1940s up to current day. And there's a throwaway line that one of the president, or there's this talk show, the McLaughlin Group, which used to be a television show. And one of the anchors says, he was a fighter pilot in the Gulf War. He did this, he did that, blah, 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 blah. They wanted a warrior, they elected a wimp. And when they said that, I got to thinking, this is probably really overthinking the movie in terms of the screenplay. But if the Harvesters were this diabolical alien race that waited for the United States and the world to be so divided, they chose this moment to attack. That's really kind of ingenious, because I got to thinking, I don't know what party Thomas Whitmore's president represents, because it's never explicitly said.
He's supposed to be Clinton, like,
Yeah,
pretty
so-
much. Like, that's just sort of what he was.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying, Mike. I don't know though. I don't think that the Harvesters overthought that, mainly because why would they have to wait until the world is divided? They
I think
can't
it might be easier to
defeated
take
unless they
us.
somehow have like an apple that can hack them.
Yeah, because like I was really thinking about this. Like, I love to look at fiction way deeper than what it should be. I love to give writers more credit than what they actually probably
Well,
deserve at times.
I'll say this: this movie, it has as a co-writer Roland Emmerich. No, Roland Emmerich gives or Roland Emmerich. Brief history: of Roland Emmerich, West German director, interesting ideas in the '80s. Did maybe 3 good films, truly good films ever, and it was the 3 in a row that he did in America at the beginning. It was Universal Soldier, Stargate, and Independence Day. Most of those, and if not all of them, were mainly written by Dean Devlin. And Dean has done a bunch of other sci-fi stuff since. I would say Dean is one of those guys who has really, really good sci-fi ideas, and then sometimes has trouble fleshing them out to make them great. He usually has to have a co-writer.
Yeah.
And he did a good job with this. Dean would have had some deep thoughts in this, and I would say that it's better. I would still say Stargate is his best written movie, but if you're thinking about this one, yes, maybe there's a little bit deep, more deep stuff in this. The sequel movie was written by 2 people that have never written anything else before, and ever since they've only written like I think it
TV,
was
maybe?
no, like reality TV show stuff.
Oh.
So it's pretty. Don't read into the second movie deeply at all, because there isn't. But
I will say this in defense of the second one. This is the only point I'm going to make, and I'll expand up upon it later. There are a couple of throwaway lines in the second movie. That's the Independence Day movie I wanted to fucking see, and I'll get to those thoughts later.
Well, Dean Devlin and Roland Emmerich had like their names
Minor
on the
input?
credits for that, but reality is they're just there. They're there in name only, just to touch it up. But yeah, I wouldn't read too deeply into these movies beyond what's at the surface level, Mike. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not really meant to be that, and that's not what Dean Devlin doesn't. Dean Devlin doesn't write movies, even admitted, with that purpose in mind. He sets up the world, and a lot of times when his stuff gets adapted into TV shows and other media, he lets other writers run with it.
Okay,
So-
yeah, because sorry, Aaron, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna jump in with a couple observations about the movie that I've had since it came out. That, you know, at 18, you know, I probably wasn't thinking too deeply about any of it, but Independence Day is very obviously a throwback movie to 1950s alien invasion movies, just with a giant budget. It is exactly what a 1950s science fiction movie would be if it could do those special effects, right? And what's great about it, what makes it work, is that those 1950s tropes are on display once you know what you're looking for. Like, hey, it's the American military industrial complex and scientists from America that have been working nonstop to do these great projects that are going to save the day. Is the rest of the world suffering and helping out? Absolutely, but it's the kind of idea of American exceptionalism that's going to defeat the alien menace. And in a weird way, it's coming together and sacrificing for each other, which, you know, is this weird idea that no longer seems to be in the public kind of zeitgeist, that you all kind of sacrifice to win this giant battle. And what's good about Independence Day is the last sort of scene, some of the last scenes where we see the giant invasion saucers falling or on the ground everywhere around the world. See, it's not just America. It's not just high tech. It's a dude that's in like an F-16 that's crazy that just rams into the one saucer to prove that it can be done. It's not some sort of weird high tech thing. It's a simple virus, computer virus that just sort of works. It's not all these aircraft. It's not all of this stuff. You could kill these aliens with an AK-47 and gumption.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's just these weird thoughts. I also, another thing that I've become critical about the movie is that I hate alien invasion movies in general because they all have the same nonsensical plot. Why are the aliens invading? Why are they invading in Independence Day? Resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Isn't it easier
in the original in Independence Day, like the first one, they don't actually say why they're invading, right?
Yeah, they just say they're here to wipe us out. That's all they say.
They're here to. It's the trope of, they're doing it out of. They're not even doing it out of food or anything. It's xenophobia. Like they don't want anything else in the galaxy but themselves.
And the first movie, it works better when you don't have the second movie trying to like explain why they're doing it. That they're like looking for resources. They just clear off planets. Well, why are you invading a planet that can fight back? You're going to have to spend a ton of your resources to constantly maintain all these attack ships, all these troops. And if you're struggling to maintain resources, wouldn't it make sense to just harvest uninhabited planets?
Yeah, like the first movie makes more sense if you think of it as like one, they see us as ants. We're nothing. And the idea is if the idea would be to, hey, they're a species that perhaps needs to live in like the Goldilocks zone kind of planets where maybe there has to be a reason that if they're going to colonize a planet, they've got to just colonize something that maybe has the same air that we breathe, yada yada yada. And the argument can be made like they're not thinking about invading us. They're just like, well, we're ants. We're just going to steamroll them and just move into where we want to move in. So it works on if you think of them as thinking of us as just insignificant, but it doesn't work, later on, like you said, with the reasoning necessarily as to why they truly are here. But I like that in the original movies that like there is no motivation. They're just the big evil, and they're the big evil because in many cases we just don't. Not only do we not understand them, we likely would not be able to understand them because they're so different from us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like there are things where basically you're right. Like we are so insignificant. We're just a minor inconvenience to whatever plans they have. And the second one tells us why they're here. And I looked at my wife Blair and said, they're like a really shitty version of the Borg, because they do say a couple lines in the second movie where they're here for our resources and our technology, but there's nothing they can really learn from us, really. And we're not even used as biological material.
I did not watch the first movie for preparation for this because again, it's been sort of seared into my memory from school. Yeah. But I remember, basic plot points, and it hit all of the right moments that you'd want for a family science fiction movie, right? Like this is one the kids can go see. This is, and it's just scary enough, but not so scary that children, like, a 5-year-old might grab onto their parent, but it's not so scary that they're going to have nightmares. And that's the right balance you want to have for this. Like, and you think of, okay, it's got like the heroic moments. It has the funny lines that everybody remembers, like, welcome to Earth.
Yeah.
And I think what makes this movie work really well is it had CGI when it needed it, but a lot of practical effects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like one thing I did a little bit of delving into this, and I watched a couple of YouTube videos and I read the Wikipedia on this movie. So take with that however source it is or canon. And they call this the War of 1996, which it was. And you look at how the Harvesters placed the city destroyers across the planet, how they were across every major metropolitan city across the world, and it would take them 3 days to wipe out everything. So me and Alex live in Canada. On the second day, on July 3rd, they actually went after Toronto, I found out. And then I started looking at the courses that they plotted throughout the US, because you do see on the displays on there, and I think this is covered in the comic books and the novelization, where they were hitting. On the second day, they also started hitting major US facilities. They hit NATO, Russia, China, etc., all the major military bases. And on the final day of the attack, before they went to Area 51, one of the other Canadian cities they were going after Montreal and Vancouver, which I found kind of interesting. But surprisingly enough, they left certain continents almost entirely barren. Like, they didn't go after a lot of places in Australia. There was only 2 major cities that they attacked there, and I think they
which would have been
majority of Australian population.
Yeah, Sydney and Melbourne, I think,
or Perth,
or Perth, yeah. And then I think in South America, I think they only went after 2 places. But yeah, I found that really interesting because I started looking at the death tolls from it. Again, morbid. The Harvesters inflicted a lot of damage on us. Like, we're talking deaths in the billions.
If I was writing, for an alien invasion, the easy way out that they always do is, we're going after the White House and we're going after,
landmarks.
The landmarks. No, where you would go is you would go to like Mexico City. You would go to, and you'd go to New Delhi. You would, if you're an alien, a true alien, you wouldn't know what the landmarks truly are. You could maybe guess, but like, if you're an alien race that has never seen our planet before, you don't know what our military bases look like. You don't know what, who has power and who doesn't. You don't necessarily know that maybe the richest country with the most resources happens to have the least amount of people. You're going for maximum impact. You're going for where there's like 50 million people in a small area. Yeah. So you're going to like Hong Kong. You're going to Shanghai. You're going to all, like, it would be a lot of what we would consider to be the third world that would be hit first, because they're not thinking, who has, the military might. They're thinking, how can we kill the most of them as quickly as possible so they can't rise up?
Yeah, and
their military might does not matter to them. Like, here, like at the one point in the movie where the stealth bombers launched the nuclear weapon, it does not matter. It just doesn't matter.
Exactly. They would be thinking, okay, well, we want to make sure that this goes as quickly as possible. Like, an alien doesn't want a prolonged invasion or a prolonged thing. They would rather just kill as many as they can quickly. So it would not likely be America that's hit first. It would be South America, parts of Africa, Asia. And, that would end up maybe being somewhat of an advantage to us. Not advantage to the people dying, obviously, but like, realistically, you'd be like, where are they located? It's like, well, why aren't they coming after the White House? Well, why would they? Like, unless they're closer in terms of human understanding to how we think, they wouldn't have even infiltrated to look at that. If they think of us as insignificant ants, they go, well, we got to go where the biggest anthill is.
Yeah, like, that's why, like, when I mentioned that they've been watching us since the 40s and all this thing, I'm thinking they had to have some knowledge of our civilization, how we work, how we function. But again, as you mentioned, Emmerich and Devlin don't write that deep. Yeah. But I was thinking, like, that's fascinating. If they did plan this out, that is diabolical on how long they waited.
Yeah, the only other thing, if you're not going to go after the largest population centers as an alien, and you're looking at us, they might go to America or somewhere else if they're looking at where is the most power being used.
Yes, I was about to say that. Yeah,
they might be looking at they might be able to look and go, okay, the power grid, or where's they can be like, okay, well, from a distance, this area has the most electricity going to it. Well, that's where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm. So ultimately, the first movie is fantastic, wonderful performances by everybody, and iconic performances. Like, this movie and Men in Black made Will Smith a real star. This made, I think I can make a pretty good argument. I mean, Jeff Goldblum was popular, but I think this made him kind of side leading man sort of thing in a way.
He was already on a roll, right? So this was part of like he had his career was off and on in the 80s, but after Jurassic Park, he had 2 or 3 movies in a row that were like big hits. But I would say this is the movie that made Will Smith, because he had done Bad Boys, and I think he did Bad Boys when he was still on Fresh Prince, and then after this movie, he didn't do television anymore.
Yeah.
Bill Pullman was he was sort of a character actor for the longest time. He hadn't really been a lead. He usually plays good bad guys though.
Yeah, he played one movie after this. They placed him with Ellen DeGeneres the following year. I want to say in a movie called Mr. Right. Yeah, that movie has not aged well.
No, he where he sort of in my mind had his comeback was like 20 years later when he did the American season of what was the Doctor Who spinoff? Torchwood. Yeah. Torchwood Miracle Day. He plays the serial killer who can't die. He's great in that.
Yeah.
But looking at like the cast, this is also before Roland Emmerich has some sort of like obsession with casting as many famous people as he can and killing them off in stupid ways in his movies. Everything that Roland Emmerich has done, I would say, like if we look at his films, don't count his German stuff, but like Universal Soldier, Stargate, Independence Day, Godzilla, and then he did The Patriot. From around, actually, Day After Tomorrow, he doesn't kill off too many people. But
he kills Dennis. No, he doesn't kill Dennis Quaid, but he kills a number of character actors.
Yeah, that might be the first one. So 2004 onward, 10,000 BC. 2012, White House Down, Midway, and Moonfall are some of the worst movies ever made.
I enjoy Midway because it is kind of goofy and dumb, but Moonfall, I looked at it like the last 10 minutes, like, this is a fact. What are you doing?
He always made a movie every year, every other year. There's a reason he hasn't made a movie in 3 years. But anyway, beyond that, like it's there's a lot of famous people in this movie that, had good parts. They had just enough lines. Like it seemed it was well done.
Got Hirsch.
Who, you wouldn't necessarily expect to be in it, but was good casting. Like everybody was cast quite well. So I don't know. It's enjoyable. It's worth watching. I don't think I can ever watch it again simply because it's been so tainted in my mind from school.
So this is where we're going to jump into the sequel, and this is
I'll never forgive you. I'll never forgive you for this shit.
Yeah. This is a rough one.
Well, it's weird because, like, as I watched it the other day, I saw it in theaters. I was very excited to see it. Leaving the theater, very disappointed. But one of the things that Independence Day Resurgence feels like it was about 15 years too late, maybe 10. Now, the original came out in 1996. If you did this in 2006, Will Smith still had a career. You could have brought him back. He didn't come back for this sequel. The guy they got playing Will Smith's son, who we saw in the original, is played by the guy from The Boys who plays A-Train. You got one of the discount Hemsworths in this, but you brought back Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum.
Discount Hemsworth.
Brent Spiner's back,
that's,
and
that's me. I'm sorry, but that's me. Liam's better than that. He's not the third Hemsworth that nobody knows or cares about.
Great value Hemsworth.
I mean, this is the Daniel Baldwin. It's not Stephen Baldwin. You know what I mean? Like, it's at least Daniel and William are good Baldwins, right? Come on, it's that idea.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, they brought back Bill Pullman. They brought back Jeff Goldblum. I'm happy about that. I'll tell you this, Mike, the only good thing I'm going to say about this movie, the entire discussion here, is that every scene that Judd Hirsch was in was good.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's fun.
I might disagree.
The one thing...
It's the best I can give you.
Now, they do this huge montage at the beginning of the movie that shows the harvesters got off a signal, that shows Bill Pullman's speech at the end of the movie. The harvesters know they got beat, so now they're coming back for revenge. But now we've reverse engineered their technology. There's been no history of armed conflict on Earth in 20 years. There's the Earth Space Force, so not quite Robotech, but we're kind of getting there. But there's one line, or there's a couple of lines that really had me intrigued, and I'm so disappointed that we never got this. So they're talking in the beginning, talking about how after the War of 1996, the Harvester ships crashed. And there were a lot of Harvester survivors. So there was a brutal ground war. And one of the ground wars lasted in the Congo for 10 years with alien holdouts. And these guys are fighting them with machetes and AKs and small arms. And there's a part where Jeff Goldblum's character, David Levinson, is walking through a field in Africa where he's going to meet this warlord who has one of the last Harvester ships that was still left fairly intact. And you see all these alien skulls on the ground. And you see a bunch of alien heads on spikes. And he says, we fought them in the jungles. We fought them tooth and nail. And one of the guys goes, well, how did you do it? And he pulls out this big knife. You got to get them from behind. And I'm thinking, why didn't we see the fucking ground war? That would have been a great Independence Day sequel.
Because we did see it. It's basically Alien versus Predator.
Yeah, but it's still like that. That would have been a way cooler movie. Like if you had a guerrilla style conflict, I think that would have been interesting. But what we got was this over the top video game of a movie.
I agree. It's so over the top. I'm ashamed to say that I saw this in the theater.
Same here.
I skipped it because it looked bad, and when I had to watch it yesterday for this, I wanted to walk out into traffic. It's one of the top 5 worst movies I've ever seen. I'm not even exaggerating.
It has
no
lot of the same
stakes.
problems that Moonfall does, by the way, with like logic. So when the alien ship comes and decelerates into Earth's atmosphere, Earth is dead. Like there's Earth is dead. Whole
because of the gravity
on fire.
Yeah.
When the buildings are being torn up into the sky, that means the alien spacecraft has more mass than the Earth. And there's going to be Roche limit problems, i.e., the planet and the ship itself are going to be strained and stressed enough that they should be cracking. And since it's a sci-fi ship, we can say, oh, well, it has stuff that can prevent it from pulling itself apart. That means Earth is effectively cracked and dead. The amount of energy released as that thing comes in to slow down would be enough. The movie was done. I said to Darlene, everything else is stupid. They did not think this through. And at the very least, the first movie tried to think about certain things.
Yeah. They actually do mention one thing about that, Aaron. There is again, throwaway line of dialogue, which means at least somebody in the room tried. They're like, sir, if this thing doesn't slow down, it's going to crack the planet in half. But you're right. When it comes to
in half, just being there.
Yeah. I was like, this doesn't
slowing
work.
Down.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, again, we have all this wonderful technology and it means sweet and fuck all when it came down to brass tacks. We couldn't do a thing against these guys. Again, we had to do more shenanigans and MacGuffins.
I have never seen a movie that looked more like a Sci-Fi Channel movie of the week than this. And yet this cost $165 million. And the CGI looked like something from 1988.
It looked like a PlayStation 3 video game. I was watching
every single thing was green screen, and everybody had bad halo affected blurring around them. Like everything was on a green screen. Why would you make this movie if you weren't going to have any practical effects at all?
Yeah, like there's one scene where it looked particularly egregious. They're in Area 51 in the alien prison, and they have some of the Earth Special Forces down there trying to defend this MacGuffin space thing that will help us. And the aliens look terrible. And this came out in 2016. This is after Age of Ultron for Marvel, which had really good CG in it. And I'm thinking these they should have had the practical suits like they did in 96, because those costumes looked great. And it's just,
Well,
it's frustrating.
every interaction that they had with the aliens, it looked like early 2000s PC video game CGI.
Yeah.
Like good CGI from, let's say, 10 years earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But then the people were blended with it. It looked really bad. Like it looked like they weren't even interacting with like a stunt double or anything. Like it's just everything looked like I painted it together on a computer, like I did without any experience. So it just looked odd. And anytime that they were outside, 99% of all the outdoor shots were in front of a green screen in a warehouse.
Yeah, like one thing that really bothered me about this is there was nobody for you to get attached to. Whereas in the first movie, you liked Whitmore, you liked Captain Hiller, you liked everybody, even the side characters. Even if they only had a couple of lines of dialogue, like the president's wife, you knew who she was because she would say liar and all that shit. Like each side character had a meaning and a purpose to be here. In this one, all I know is Discount Hemsworth, A-Train, the Chinese girl, and the girl who's supposed to be Whitmore's daughter. I can't name any of them. I know one of them is Captain Hiller's son, and the Discount Hemsworth almost got him killed in a test flight. And they explain Will Smith's death in the most terrible manner possible. Oh, he died during a test flight. I'm not buying that. Personally,
he didn't die during a test flight. He died when Warner Brothers offered a lot more money to do Suicide Squad. Is what happened. And to the point where when Roland Emmerich says, I shouldn't have made this movie after he turned down the script because we had to rewrite the whole movie with only a few weeks before shooting. Yeah. That's why. So apparently the original movie had a completely different script and plot. Like not just like, oh, they wrote him out, a completely different plot. They shouldn't have made the movie.
Yeah,
no, they shouldn't have. The movie that we ended up getting was just it didn't make sense. There wasn't like a lot of consistency inside of it. The characters, like you said, were just
there,
pointless, blank. And the returning characters, you still felt something for them that was left over from the first movie. But like, I'm thinking about President Moore. I was just like, why is Bill Pullman doing this? Why is Brent Spiner here doing this? This is
Brent Spiner's there because nobody was willing to pay him to do anything at this point. Remember, this is before they decided to give him like a victory lap, right, on Star Trek. So he did it for the money because they offered him good money, and I'll bet you it wouldn't surprise me if he's friends with Dean Devlin or some of the other producers because he's known them for 20 some odd years. Sure. But like, yeah, like
when the answer is I need a paycheck, like. Ugh, I don't know.
It's unfortunate, but it is. It's clearly like, if you ask Brett, he would say it was a paycheck. I guarantee you, he wouldn't say he did it because he thought it was a good idea.
Yeah, and it's weird because like it's pretty clear in the first movie he's dead, and again they just show a random side where like, oh, you've been in a coma for 200 and blah 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 whatever.
He's been in a coma, and he somehow in a coma on IV fluids gained 40 pounds.
Yeah, and his muscles are not wasted away to nothing. So science, I guess.
Yes,
but yeah,
I mean that's to be. I don't want to be mean, but like, let's be real here. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's terrible. And like I said, this movie, it feels unnecessary. And even when Whitmore gives the ultimate sacrifice, spoiler alert, I guess, they have this big fuck you queen who looks like the Cloverfield monster. And it has a giant gun because of course it would. And it's just, it looks like a video game bot. It looks like something I'd fight in fucking R-Type and would just circle strafe. It's ridiculous.
And yet,
it's like a Star Fox boss.
I saw this and all I kept thinking to myself was, oh my God, Pacific Rim is so much better.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh God, Pacific Rim. Yeah. What an amazing movie.
We should talk about that.
Yes. Yes. And we should talk about, if you're going to do that, you're going to just please don't. Okay. I guess you could force us to watch the second one too, I guess, but still.
I've actually never seen it.
Oh God. The second one is awful. It's like comparing Independence Day to its
Yeah, we'll have to
it's-
watch it. Canceling
Yeah.
the apocalypse and everything.
uh,
But yeah,
Um,
it's like it's so tragic that you had this iconic movie of the 90s, and this was clearly a cash grab. People did want this, but they didn't want it 20 years later. Like, it feels weird because you look at other movies that have long gaps between them, and it's obviously the money people are in charge. And I think a good example of this, I think, is a movie that wasn't necessary. You look at Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That was a wonderful capstone to the franchise. Indy goes out on a high note. Wonderful. 2008 comes along. Shia LaBeouf, CG monkeys, Russians, Crystal Skull aliens. Pretty stupid. And then we get Dial of Destiny. Yeah.
the video game is a much better sequel.
I want to make a point about Independence Day sequel in general.
Mhm.
There is ideas for an Independence Day sequel that stems right from the first movie that could have been done in 2016, and it would have made a whole lot of sense. Still would have actually had big kind of like action set pieces. Why can't you just make an Independence Day Revisited as a title? Have all of these characters return, new characters, and it's done like a PBS documentary telling about what happened after the aliens were defeated, talking about that war in the Congo, talking about how humanity has finally come together, and interviewing all these characters from the original movie, and then doing like flashovers or like here is footage from this engagement with in the Congo, and we go back and it looks like it's documentary footage being filmed by some newsmaker that's embedded in this group. Like, there's so many things that you could do that would actually like add to the universe and
Like-
not have the stupidity.
Like District 9. Film it like that.
Yeah. And the big MacGuffin in this movie is they have this lone survivor that has survived the harvesters. And it's basically revealed the harvesters are like a really shitty version of the Borg. They go to different worlds, take all the resources, biological and technological, and they drain the Earth's core of its molten energy to refuel their ships. And like Aaron said, why wouldn't you just go to an abandoned planet where it's a lot less work?
Well, and not to mention, they're
doesn't make any sense either.
They're so uncreative when it comes to, like, there was some creativity with the alien designs in the original, but like in this one, the solution is, hey, let's make the anti-alien look like something from the Apple Store.
Yeah,
And
it's like Siri.
why does it have to look like something from Earth? And not to mention, it's basically looks and talks like Eva, or it was Evie from Wall-E, like the Pixar movie. Like it studies our language, starts talking to us, has no issues whatsoever. I don't know, something's not right.
Yeah, it's just it's a mess of a sequel. It is
Like,
years too late.
They're like, we're scanning it, and there's no indication that it's alive or anything. And the guy's like touching it, they're like, it activates. Like, you didn't think of that?
Yeah.
Like, and not only that, he's like, it's eating me, and then it talks, and it's like, hey, you're primitives, and it's like, okay, but what? And it's like, and it speaks English. It's like, but why? Why
Because
wouldn't
it has taken a listen to our primitive broadcasts. I'm thinking, fuck off.
And it's like, okay, but they didn't explain. Wait, they didn't
It would have
explain.
heard that everyone was confused about why it wasn't talking or what was going on. If it was monitoring all that, like, why would it just continue to be quiet? Why?
And also, why did it exist? Like, it didn't provide anything to them, did it?
It did in the very end. It's like Dr. Okun Data says there's technology on this thing's hard drive that would put us thousands of centuries ahead. And it's like,
here's a
okay,
question.
where's your tech?
Why didn't it at all in the last ever? why didn't it help us at all? And it's like, another question, why did the aliens want it?
because it was the only thing that was capable of defeating them. There is a quote unquote refugee planet somewhere.
Yet it didn't. And they said like, oh, we all died out and I'm the last one. And it's like, okay, but like, if you failed if your race failed completely, why does the alien still care about you?
Yeah, because they're like, there's this refugee planet, there's a resistance. I'm like,
Oh,
okay, but it still takes you.
Don't forget, we're going to go into interstellar battle. We're going to take the battle to them.
Yeah,
and then it goes right to credits, and we're never getting that sequel. We'll never have that shit. Okay, I say that now, and then somehow, Dean Devlin's going to get that movie made. I have no idea. To me, I was going here looking through, and this movie screamed like money laundering to me. It screamed like having Chinese money thrown in it and having to like. This is that era where every big blockbuster had to have a up and coming Chinese star because that's how China would finance and give like $50 million to a movie as long as it had a Chinese star that could come out as being like, they've got to win, they've got to be good, and they got to make China look good. That was the thing that happened. Now that we've dropped that completely. But like, there was 10 years where that was happening with almost every major movie, and this movie screams that, but I'm not seeing it in the production. This just screamed, somebody went to a boardroom with like 30 investors and said, give us your money and, tell us what you need in return. And it's like they tried to like check off a checklist of everything they needed to do in order to get the money to make the movie. Not like, this screams made for the money. And I know all the Hollywood movies are made for the money, but like, this screamed it was like a recipe to make a movie and not that there was an intended movie behind it.
Yeah, like there wasn't a lot of love put into this, and like having returning characters, like for Spiner, yeah, this is a paycheck. I'm pretty sure Bill Pullman agreed, okay, I'll do it, but I want to have a beard so I can shave it off and look dramatic and shit. Like, there's no reason. I mean, Jeff Goldblum he would do a 7-Eleven opening at this point, I'm sure. But he just shows up because it's fun.
Okay, I was going to say, he does not show up for the money anymore, and he's said that publicly. He shows up when he thinks he's going to have fun in a movie.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good for him.
That's cool. Exactly. And Hemsworth, I feel bad for, because this was sort of when his star was kind of rising, and he was trying to get out of his brother's shadow.
Was this after the Red Dawn remake or before?
I think this is right after.
Okay.
And he's a good actor. It's funny. He's likely going to be doing more dramatic roles than his brother eventually, just because of how he is.
Mm-hmm.
But like, looking at this, he had done the Hunger Games movies.
Yep, and he was fine in that.
And when was Red Dawn? Like you said, I think this was he wasn't in Red Dawn. That was the brother.
Oh, okay, that's the other Hemsworth.
He did he was in the Expendables, and he was in Hunger Games, and then he did Independence Day. And since then, he's kind of
He's there.
Yeah, he basically took over as Geralt of Rivia in the Witcher TV show after what's his name, Superman left.
Henry Cavill.
So do you think that the second movie actually made its money back after you take into consideration the marketing?
I don't think
165 with a budget
versus 390.
Maybe barely.
No. It all depends on how much of this. Okay, I looked at the end, and they took tax credits from so many different places. So yes, I think they probably turned maybe a 10% profit.
And that's
then
something else.
Look at the original movie. It made 11 times its budget back.
Oh yeah.
And back then the marketing, let's say the marketing for that original was probably 50 million. It wasn't like double.
Yeah.
So yeah, they made probably 5 times. And that's not counting the fact that every person on the planet either bought or rented the video.
Yeah. Like,
so
when
it probably, that 800 million, I would say triple that. It probably made close to nearly $2 billion if you consider home video market. And then I would say the new one, I'm willing to bet that the box office is, it's probably real. I don't think they inflated that number, but I'm willing to bet that the home video market made less than $50 million.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like when I look back at the second movie, Resurgence, it was not the cultural phenomenon that it needed to be. Like it was in a market that had DC, it had Marvel, it had Fast and the Furious, it had so many bigger franchises that had overshadowed it. Now, you guys know I'm a big merch guy. I love toys. There was a pretty big push for the toys. I actually found an article from Toy Fair that was talking about some of these toys were showing off at the New York City Toy Fair. I saw these on shelves precisely twice. Once when the movie came out, nobody bought them. They were stuck on an end cap in a Walmart. And then I saw them in clearance bins at a discount store several months later. And the toys were kind of cool. There was like the Earth Fighter, there was the Alien Fighter, a blaster that I think was like a water gun or maybe like a Nerf gun or something, and maybe one of the alien biosuits. But it's kind of weird. I think about this movie in the same way I think about Avatar. And what I mean by that is the merch for this movie should have been really cool, but it wasn't. Avatar had some really cool designs, like the mech suit. I still see that in toy stores today, and it's sitting there for $50 and will never sell, but it looks cool. But there was no reason for it to exist except to a high-end collector market. No kid in 2016 is going to buy Independence Day toys because it's not Spider-Man, it's not Captain America, it's not Superman, it's not Batman. It's nothing they have a connection to. When you try to revive a franchise, you can't do it like this. It's just unnecessary, it's wasteful, and those toys are going to be sitting on eBay forever. I think I did a brief search on it. If I wanted to buy the complete line of these toys, I think I could do it for less than $300 in package. That's insane for a complete toy line.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Looking at this, it said 103 million in the United States and Canada, where this is the market where your tickets are the most expensive, meaning a lot less people saw it than the previous film. Also, 286 million being other territories. This is one of those movies where Fox didn't make the money from the ticket sales. This is one of the ones where they pre-sold markets. So they probably lost money on this, even if they're lying and saying that they made. So it's similar to what happened with what Lionsgate has been doing, where they're basically going bankrupt now. That Borderlands movie did so poorly, and they projected it so poorly that they pre-sold like $50 million worth. Basically, instead of taking percentage of the ticket sales, they go to a country, an entire country's distributor, and say, give us $20 million for the rights to this movie, and then you get to keep all of the ticket sales in your country. And that's what they were doing. That's what they did with this. So it made like 286 million in ticket sales for other countries, but they probably only got 50 to 100 million dollars in pre-sale market sales for it. So they probably only got about 200 million total on a $165 million production budget. They probably didn't recoup the marketing costs at all. And the only way that they were going to make money from this was probably as a package deal selling Blu-rays together or for streaming rights.
I don't even remember this being in theaters all that long either.
It looks like it was only 3 weeks, I think, in North America and major markets, and then it went down.
Wow.
Because it's opening weekend. What did it say here? Opening weekend. It made $4 million opening night on Thursday night for 3,200 theaters. It made nothing.
Ouch.
So it made 16.8 million on its first full day, compared to the first film's $11 million. But that's not including the fact that there had been 20 years of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
So it made 41 million in its first weekend, which was about 9 million less than the original movie, not counting inflation. So it basically made less than half of its opening of the first film and then tapered off from there. And its expectations were about 80 million. So it made about half of what they were expecting. And they probably just didn't realize the movie is shit. The trailer made it look like they were doing the same movie a second time. And that was the biggest mistake, is it didn't look like a sequel. It looked like a remake.
Yeah, it failed on every conceivable manner. Like I said, there's some interesting ideas, but you can't build a movie on an interesting idea.
And saying that, how I said that Judd Hirsch was probably my only highlight of it, he still did incredibly stupid things.
Oh yeah.
Let's get in a bus full of children and drive towards the problem.
Yeah. There's so many.
I don't have a ton more to say about this movie myself.
Same here.
It is such a letdown. It was a bad theater experience. I didn't even see it on opening night. I couldn't bring myself to do that.
Oh, you saw the trailer and went, oh no.
Yeah, but I said I wanted to go and see it because I think there might be some kind of cool ideas in there, and I was let down with that too.
Yeah, I saw this on opening night with Blair, and I remember walking out of the theater pissed off, and I'm still disappointed today. Like I said, I want my Congo War movie. I'm never going to get it.
I had friends that wanted to go see it, and I turned to them and said, you hate me, don't you? And I just didn't go. And I somehow managed to avoid it until you said, let's watch this. And I watched it literally last night, and all I could think of was like, Mike hates me. Like, how could he... What
have I done to you? What have I done?
Like 50% of the cast is television actors, and television actors that have never done movies before because they're not good enough. And then the rest of it is like, let's bring back the cast from the first film and not give them any good lines.
Yeah, like this movie, it's forgettable. It sets up a sequel that will never happen. Its legacy is to be forgotten on a streaming service, whereas the first one is an iconic piece of pop culture that can never be rematched.
I'll say this, I would rather see a low-budget television show starring the Congolese warlord and the dirty aide as a buddy cop going around.
John Oliver
going around cleaning up like the stragglers.
That would be kind of awesome. And if you did that like Aaron's war documentary, I'd fucking watch that.
Because at the end of the movie, he goes, you have the spirit of a warrior or whatever. That's the nicest thing anybody's ever said to me. And I'm like, that would be like the nicest thing anybody's ever said to you if a Congolese warlord said that to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, that's going to bring our show here on Feature Imperfect to a conclusion. Like I said, go watch the first Independence Day. Really easy to find. I'm pretty sure, like I said, if you look through your house, you'll mysteriously find a copy on VHS. The sequel, you can avoid it. Nothing of consequence happens. All the cool shit is in the trailer anyway. The end. So we're going to come back on Future Imperfect in a little while. We're going to look at RoboCop 1987 and then RoboCop 2014 remakes.
I hate you so much.
See, I've got interesting thoughts on the second one. I watched it again for the first time since my theater experience. It's not as bad as I remember, but a lot of missed opportunity for sure. Because I've got thoughts. But anyway, so we will be doing that. We're going to be we are currently in the stages of planning our next big summer special that'll be out during the summer. So we're going to be recording that as we slug through the winter months here at Twig. We've got stuff coming up for Twig RAM, which is our random access memories. We also have more loose cannons coming up between me, Ken, Dave, and Adam. We got a lot of great stuff. I know Aaron and Darlene have more Earth versus Soups that are currently cooking on the stove. Me and Alex will be doing more stuff. Twig regular show is going to be pretty regular. We are taking a break during Easter weekend. We're going to take 2 weekends off, and then we'll come back and do that. And then we're going to keep running through till video game season. And then we're going to take the summer off, and then we'll come back later on. So a lot of good stuff. You're going to have a lot of podcasts. Don't worry. We are recording tons of stuff for the evergreen bin. It'll be just as fresh as the milk in the back of your fridge. That's okay. So for This Week in Geek from the great city of Kitchener, we have been
Alex, the producer.
From Lansing, Michigan,
I'm Aaron Pollyea.
and I've been Mike the Birdman saying, live long and prosper, or welcome to Earth. We'll see you guys again real soon, right here on thisweekingeek.net.
Pay attention.
Something you want to add to this briefing, Captain Hiller?
No, sir. Just a little anxious to get up there and whoop E.T.'s ass, that's all.
When you get your chance, you'll all get your chance. Good hunting. Dismissed. Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
Computer, this is Captain James Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Destruct sequence 1, code 1, 1A.
Computer, initiate the self-destruct sequence. Authorization Janeway Pi 110.
Computer, this is Captain Benjamin Sisko. Initiate auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Cisco Alpha 1 Alpha.
Begin auto-destruct sequence. Authorization Picard 47 Alpha Tango.
Self-destruct in 15 minutes. There will be no further audio warning.
My lord, the ship appears to be deserted.
How can that be? They're hiding.
Yes, sir. But the bridge seems to be run by computer. It is the only thing speaking.
Speaking? Let me hear.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5.
Get out!
3,
Get out of there! Get out!
1.